By the time I turned 33, I realized I had been doing life all wrong. I wasted years waiting for permission, chasing approval, and fearing failure, and it cost me more than money or time. If I had known then what I know now, my 20s would have looked completely different. Today, I'm going to share the harsh truths I wish I'd learned earlier, truths that could change the next decade of your life if you're brave enough to listen. Time is the one resource no one can ever earn back, and by the time you hit 33, you begin to feel the sting of wasted hours. I wasted years waiting for the perfect moment, thinking I had plenty of time to chase goals, learn skills, or start building something meaningful. Every day, I scrawled, I hesitated, I overanalyzed, and life quietly slipped past me. When I finally looked back, I realized the moments I thought I was preparing in my 20s were actually the moments I was losing forever. Time compounds just like money does, but unlike money, it can never be replaced or regained. The habits you build in your 20s either accelerate your growth or silently chain you to mediocrity. Every hour you waste on distraction, every minute spent waiting for someone's approval, is a minute you'll never reclaim. Your 20s are your leverage years, where a small investment of effort now creates an exponential return in the next decade. If you want freedom later, you must master how you spend your time today. Stop treating time like it's endless, because it isn't. And most people assume time is infinite when they're young, but life has a sneaky way of proving you wrong. By 33, I saw friends stuck in routines that offered comfort but no growth. They worked long hours for money they didn't enjoy spending, scrolling endlessly after work, and convincing themselves they had time to start later. The problem is, later rarely comes, and later is usually someone else's schedule. Time spent without intention is time surrendered to the noise of the world. Every distraction is a thief, quietly robbing you of the moments that could have defined your future. Learning to own your time isn't just about scheduling, it's about ruthlessly choosing what deserves your energy. In your 20s, you are at your most flexible, capable, and full of potential. Using that time poorly isn't just a small mistake, it compounds into years of regret. Stop apologizing for saying no. Stop waiting for clarity that may never arrive, and start taking ownership of your hours. The clock doesn't negotiate, it only ticks. And the hardest lesson I learned about time is that doing busy work feels productive but rarely is. I used to fill my days with tasks that made me feel like I was moving forward, yet none of them contributed to the life I wanted. Meetings, social media, minor errands, and endless research disguised themselves as progress, but they were really just time vampires. By 33, I realized that the people who achieved the most weren't necessarily working harder. They were working smarter and protecting their attention like it was gold. In your 20s, focus on activities that have compounding returns, learning a high-value skill, building meaningful relationships, and creating systems that amplify your effort. Every hour invested in these areas multiplies over time, while hours spent scrolling or overthinking shrink your potential. Understanding the difference between effort and leverage early in life is the secret to accelerated growth. Stop glorifying busy and start mastering leverage. Time invested intentionally pays dividends far beyond anything money could buy, and discipline over your minutes creates freedom over your years. And this is something that most people only realize too late. I spent too many evenings distracted by fleeting pleasures, convincing myself I deserved a break, while ignoring the future self silently begging for me to act. By 33, I realized that time lost is opportunity lost, and that breaks without boundaries become traps. Owning your time isn't about eliminating joy, it's about structuring your life so that joy doesn't cost you progress. Every choice about what to do with your day is an investment in the kind of life you'll lead tomorrow. The faster you understand this, the less you waste your prime years chasing temporary comfort. Intentionality isn't optional if you want results, it's non-negotiable. Each day you own becomes a building block, and each day wasted becomes a weight. In your 20s, you have energy, resilience, and fewer responsibilities. Use this leverage to compound your skills, relationships, and opportunities. And I also learned that owning time is as much about saying no as it is about saying yes. Early on, I said yes to everything: favors, social invitations, minor distractions, all under the guise of being helpful or connected. By 33, I realized that saying yes to the wrong things steals your time from the things that actually matter. In your 20s, most people will underestimate the power of saying no and overestimate the importance of immediate gratification. Every no you deliver is a yes to your future self. Protecting your calendar isn't selfish, it's strategic. You can't control time, but you can control what you allow to occupy it. Early mastery of this skill means the difference between a life built on intention and one dictated by obligation. Learning to filter out the noise, focus on the essential, and prioritize ruthlessly is the ultimate freedom. The sooner you understand this, the faster you will accelerate in life. And by the time I reached 33, I noticed that those who achieved the most didn't have more time. They had mastered the art of protecting it. They eliminated distractions, automated decisions, and consistently invested in what mattered most. The difference wasn't luck, it was strategy. In your 20s, you can do the same, but only if you recognize that the clock is ticking. Small, intentional habits compound faster than you think. Wasting a single hour a day over a year amounts to over 15 full days of life lost. Do the math and realize how precious this resource is. Time is the ultimate currency. Spend it wisely, invest it consistently, and guard it fiercely. Anything less is giving your future away. And energy follows attention, and attention follows intention. I wasted years giving my attention to things that didn't matter, thinking I could make up for it later. By 33, I saw that once lost, attention rarely comes back intact. In your 20s, you are building the foundation for decades of results. Every choice about what you focus on, every hour spent learning, creating, or improving compounds into massive advantages. The earlier you start protecting your attention, the more freedom and opportunity you create. This is not a suggestion. It's a blueprint for survival and success. Own your time because no one else will. Let your hours serve your dreams, not someone else's agenda. And the harshest truth about time is that it is impartial. It doesn't care about your intentions, excuses, or regrets. It moves relentlessly, and if you haven't learned to protect it by the time you're 33, you start feeling the weight of lost years. In your 20s, the stakes are lower, but the potential is enormous. Every intentional day compounds, and every wasted day compounds in the wrong direction. The key is to live like a strategist, not a spectator. Guard your hours as fiercely as you guard money or relationships, because unlike wealth, time doesn't come back. Every decision you make now determines the quality of the next decade. This is not about stress, it's about clarity, control, and purpose. And I wish I had realized in my 20s that waiting for perfect conditions is a trap. By 33, I saw people who spent years preparing without ever acting. Time was slipping through their fingers while they rehearsed for an imaginary start. In your 20s, imperfections are opportunities, and early action compounds faster than perfect planning. Every step you take now multiplies into the next decade. Every hour spent intentionally strengthens habits, skills, and momentum. The sooner you understand that the present is the only moment you truly control, the sooner you start building the life you want. Your 20s are the leverage years, your 30s the payoff. Guard your time, invest it wisely, and act relentlessly. And owning your time is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows only with consistent effort. I wasted years thinking it would come naturally, but by 33, I understood it must be trained. Start with small wins, block focus hours, eliminate meaningless commitments, and schedule time for growth. Then escalate, protect your mornings, limit distractions, and ruthlessly evaluate every opportunity. In your 20s, the compound effect is staggering. Small actions today become unstoppable momentum tomorrow. Every hour you reclaim from distraction is an hour invested in mastery, relationships, and freedom. By mastering your time early, you win years of life others spend chasing illusions. Time is your leverage, your weapon, and your currency. Use it with intent. For the longest time, I feared failure. I thought mistakes defined me, that every misstep was a reflection of my inadequacy. By the time I turned 33, I realized that fear had been the single biggest barrier between me and growth. Failure isn't a verdict, it's tuition, a price you pay for learning what works and what doesn't. In your 20s, the stakes feel high, but they are actually low compared to the compounded cost of avoiding failure for a decade. Every risk you dodge today creates regret tomorrow. The lessons you learn from discomfort, loss, and mistakes are irreplaceable. They accelerate understanding faster than any book, course, or mentor ever could. When you start seeing failure as a teacher rather than an enemy, you stop wasting energy avoiding it. Every setback becomes a lesson, every mistake a roadmap. Embrace the hard truths early, and your growth will be exponential. And I remember the first time I launched a project and it completely failed. I had invested months, poured heart and effort into it, and the result was humiliation. At the time, it felt devastating, like a reflection of who I was. By 33, I realized it was one of the most valuable experiences of my life. That failure taught me clarity about my approach, exposed weaknesses I didn't know I had, and revealed insights I could never have imagined. In your 20s, you have the freedom to experiment and fail with minimal long-term consequences. Every failure in this decade is an investment in skill, resilience, and judgment. The earlier you normalize failing, the faster you build immunity to fear. Fear of failing is what keeps most people trapped in mediocrity, while those who embrace it build momentum. Every discomfort carries a hidden opportunity for growth. Learning to see it is the difference between stagnation and acceleration. And most people treat failure like shame, and it becomes a scar they carry instead of a tool they use. By the time I was 33, I realized that I had wasted years being apologetic for missteps that were actually the foundation of my growth. In your 20s, you are in the prime learning window. Use it aggressively. Take risks, Start businesses, fail in love, try new skills, explore ideas that scare you. Every failure is data. Every lesson learned is an advantage others will never have. Life doesn't punish failure, it punishes inaction and indecision. By seeing mistakes as tuition, you remove the emotional weight that keeps people stuck. Each mistake you survive compounds into courage, confidence, and insight. The sooner you embrace this perspective, the faster you accelerate in life. Failure is not a setback, it's a catalyst. And I also learned that failure reveals character in ways that success never can. Success is often shiny and flattering, but it doesn't stress your decision-making, courage, or resilience. Failure exposes your patterns, tests your grit, and forces introspection. By 33, I realized that the moments I thought were humiliating were actually the moments I grew the most. In your 20s, you must embrace these moments as essential growth labs. Every rejection, every loss, every miscalculation carries lessons invisible in the moment. If you avoid them, you stunt your development and prolong the learning curve. The more you fail intentionally and reflect honestly, the more prepared you are for challenges that matter. Life rewards those who learn faster than others, and failure is the fastest teacher. Stop fearing it, start seeking it strategically. And perfectionism is the cousin of fear, and it is the killer of progress. I spent years refining, delaying, and over-polishing, thinking that avoiding failure meant being careful. By 33, I understood that perfectionism only delays inevitable lessons. In your 20s, execute imperfectly, learn, adjust, and repeat. Speed trumps perfection when it comes to learning. Every attempt, even if flawed, provides feedback you cannot get in theory. The most successful people are those who failed faster, learned faster, and iterated faster. Avoiding mistakes only prolongs ignorance, while embracing them accelerates mastery. Every failure is a tuition payment for expertise, and every expert paid it in full. Learning early to tolerate discomfort and imperfection is the ultimate competitive advantage. Stop waiting for confidence. Build it through action. And I also discovered that failure is a filter for commitment. When you try something and fail, it reveals what truly matters to you. By 33, I saw that the things I gave up on after the first challenge were never worth pursuing anyway. In your 20s, the ability to distinguish between fleeting frustration and meaningful struggle is critical. Not every failure is a lesson in perseverance. Some are lessons in letting go. But you can't know until you try, and you can't know until you fail. This is how grit is built. Through repeated exposure to challenge, reflection, and adjustment. The earlier you experience this, the more clarity you gain on priorities, purpose, and strategy. Avoiding failure keeps you blind to this filtering process. Embrace it intentionally, and you'll discover what's worth fighting for and what's not. And failure also teaches humility, which is underrated in your 20s but invaluable in your 30s. I used to think success was about talent, luck, or intelligence, but by 33, I realized it was about adaptability, resilience, and willingness to learn. Failure forces you to confront your limitations, your assumptions, and your blind spots. Every time I failed, I gained humility and insight I could not have access through success alone. In your 20s, you can accumulate these lessons rapidly if you adopt the right mindset. Each failure makes you wiser, more adaptable, and more capable of handling complexity. Ignoring or avoiding failure delays the development of these traits indefinitely. Those who embrace it grow faster, think clearer, and achieve more meaningful success. Failure isn't a curse, it's a catalyst for growth. And by 33, I realized that failure also strengthens relationships in unexpected ways. When you stumble, you learn who genuinely supports you and who doesn't. In your 20s, this clarity is priceless. You start investing in people who bring value, support your growth, and challenge you while letting go of toxic connections. Failure teaches empathy, gratitude, and perspective. It forces you to see that life is not about avoiding discomfort, but navigating it effectively. Each setback becomes a test of character and resilience, and each lesson compounds into wisdom. Those who fail wisely cultivate richer personal and professional networks because failure exposes truth faster than success ever could. Every misstep is a mirror reflecting your values, priorities, and vision. And finally, I learned that failure is often the precursor to massive breakthroughs. By 33, I noticed a pattern. The most successful moments in my life were always preceded by the most crushing failures. In your 20s, the magnitude of your failures often feels proportional to how far you'll go if you persevere. Every rejection, every loss, every miscalculation sets the stage for exponential growth if you internalize the lessons and adjust strategy. Those who fear failure remain small, cautious, and reactive. Those who embrace it grow large, bold, and proactive. The sooner you normalize failure as tuition rather than defeat, the sooner you accelerate into the life most people only dream of. Action, reflection, and iteration are your superpowers when you stop fearing mistakes. For the longest time, I let other people's opinions dictate my decisions. I worried about how I would be perceived, what others would think if I chased unconventional goals, or if I deviated from the path they approved of. By the time I reached 33, I realized this was the single biggest reason I had wasted years. People will always have opinions. It is unavoidable and impartial. The key is learning to separate the noise from the signals. In your 20s, the temptation to seek approval is strongest because you crave validation and acceptance. But living for other people's approval is a trap that steals your time, energy, and clarity. Every should or what if imposed by others dilutes your vision and delays your growth. Your life is not a democracy where everyone gets a vote. The sooner you internalize that, the sooner you reclaim your power. And I spent years saying yes to requests I didn't care about because I feared judgment. I avoided bold moves, suppressed opinions, and avoided risk because of what someone else might think. By 33, I realized that this fear had cost me momentum, opportunities, and freedom. In your 20s, you have an extraordinary advantage: flexibility and resilience. This is the decade to experiment, take risks, and even make mistakes without permanent consequences. Every choice you make should reflect your priorities, not someone else's comfort. The world will criticize, question, and judge no matter what you do. The difference lies in whether you let it stop you. Reject the idea that your life should be filtered through someone else's expectations. Those who succeed are unapologetic about their vision, even when misunderstood. And the harshest truth is that judgment is unavoidable. There will always be someone who thinks you're too young, too inexperienced, too ambitious, or too bold. By 33, I saw that the people who achieved the most were those who ignored the noise and acted anyway. In your 20s, this lesson is critical. Seeking constant validation slows decision-making, reduces risk tolerance, and limits growth. Instead of asking others for permission, ask yourself, is this aligned with my goals? People's opinions are cheap, they cost them nothing and teach you little. Your future self is the only vote that matters. Stop worrying about looking foolish, making mistakes, or being judged. Courage comes from self-approval, not external applause. And I also realized that overvaluing judgment creates a prison of conformity. I watched friends settle into lives that felt safe because they feared criticism more than failure. They avoided opportunities, avoided speaking up, and avoided challenging the status quo. By 33, I understood that conformity is the enemy of impact. In your 20s, it is crucial to define your values, principles, and vision early. Decisions based on fear of judgment always compound into regret. The earlier you break free from the need to please everyone, the more control you have over your life. Living unapologetically doesn't mean ignoring others. It means prioritizing your path over approval. Every step taken for someone else's comfort is a step away from your potential. Own your choices ruthlessly. And one of the most liberating lessons I learned is that judgment often says more about the person judging than about you. By 33, I had seen this pattern repeatedly. People project their insecurities, fears, and limitations onto others. In your 20s, this is a critical insight. Criticism can be valuable if it is constructive, but most judgment is noise. Learning to differentiate feedback from opinion is essential for growth. Stop internalizing criticism that isn't actionable, and stop allowing judgment to derail your decisions. Your energy is finite. Investing it in others' perspectives is wasted capital. Choose influence carefully. Decide whose voice deserves space in your mind and ignore the rest. This is how leaders, innovators, and high performers navigate their 20s successfully. And I also learned that judgment becomes irrelevant when results speak for themselves. By 33, I noticed the people I admired most didn't spend energy defending themselves or explaining choices. They executed relentlessly. In your 20s, action is your strongest shield against criticism. Every accomplishment, every milestone, and every skill you build quiets the doubters far more effectively than arguments ever could. Stop arguing with those who doubt you. Focus on producing results. Judgment loses its power when your trajectory is obvious, your work undeniable, and your priorities clear. Early mastery of this mindset allows you to take risks others avoid, speak boldly, and act decisively without hesitation. The world will talk, but your actions will always matter more than their opinions, and fear of judgment also prevents experimentation and creativity. I spent years hesitant to try new ideas, fearing ridicule or misunderstanding. By 33, I realized innovation and growth are born from discomfort, not comfort. In your 20s, you have a unique window to explore, fail, and refine without permanent consequences. Every step you avoid because of perceived judgment is a lost opportunity to learn, grow, and excel. Don't let the hypothetical opinions of others dictate your creative output. The people who change industries, build businesses, or redefine themselves disregard judgment. They focus on results and learning. Embrace audacity, curiosity, and experimentation early. Judgment becomes irrelevant when you are too busy creating impact. And I also discovered that true confidence comes from internal approval, not external validation. By 33, I stopped seeking permission to live boldly and pursue goals others might not understand. In your 20s, this skill is transformative. Confidence is cultivated through action, reflection, and alignment with your values, not through applause or praise. Every decision anchored in self-approval compounds into autonomy and resilience. When you depend on others to validate your life choices, you surrender control of your narrative. Own your path unapologetically, even when misunderstood or judged. This mindset is a multiplier. It accelerates risk-taking, learning, and growth. Stop living according to the comfort of others. Start living according to your standards. And by 33, I realized that people will judge no matter what, so worrying about it is pointless. In your 20s, it's easy to overestimate the impact of criticism on your life. Most judgment is fleeting, temporary, and meaningless in the grand scheme. Wasting mental energy on it compounds stress, reduces clarity, and delays action. Instead, focus on alignment. Are your decisions moving you closer to your goals? Are they consistent with your values? Use judgment as a filter for insight only, not as a measure of self-worth. The faster you internalize that your life is yours alone, the faster you reclaim energy, focus, and freedom. Those who learn this early have an enormous advantage over peers who spend years trapped by external opinion. And finally, I learned that embracing this truth creates liberation, momentum, and clarity. By 33, I could make decisions with speed, confidence, and minimal friction because I no longer weighed every action against societal expectations. In your 20s, this freedom is even more valuable because it compounds over decades. Every bold choice, every calculated risk, and every authentic action multiplies over time. Judgment loses power when you are clear, intentional, and fearless in your pursuit. Living unapologetically isn't reckless, it is strategic. Those who master this early create lives of freedom, impact, and opportunity that others only dream of. Learning to tune out the noise while remaining disciplined in pursuit of your own path is the ultimate leverage in your 20s. I spent years chasing money, thinking wealth was the ultimate measure of success. By the time I reached 33, I realized that while money comes and goes, skills compound endlessly and create opportunities that money alone never could. Your ability to learn, adapt, and create value grows exponentially when invested consistently. In your 20s, you have an unparalleled advantage of time. Time allows you to acquire high-value skills, refine them, and compound their effect over decades. Focusing solely on income is short-sighted. It may provide comfort, but it rarely provides leverage. Every hour you spend mastering skills is an hour invested in freedom, resilience, and future options. Unlike income, skills are portable, flexible, and self-reinforcing. They make you irreplaceable, capable, and adaptable to any environment. Early mastery of this mindset sets the foundation for lifelong independence and opportunity. And most people undervalue the long-term power of skills in their 20s because they are obsessed with instant gratification. I watched peers chase promotions, side hustles, and flashy titles, thinking they were building their future. By 33, I realized those who focused on skill development instead were far ahead, regardless of short-term earnings. Skills compound in ways income never does. One skill can open doors to multiple opportunities, while money without competence often vanishes as quickly as it comes. In your 20s, the most strategic investment is in yourself. Your ability to think critically, solve problems, and execute. Every new skill is an asset that generates opportunities, income, and influence long after you've learned it. Money without skill is temporary. Skill without money is permanent leverage. Start early, focus relentlessly, and watch compounding work in your favor. And the key to compounding skills is consistency and deliberate effort. I wasted time jumping from interest to interest without depth in my early years. By 33, I realized depth outweighed breadth when it came to mastery. In your 20s, it's crucial to identify high leverage skills, those that create the most value in the shortest time, and commit to them fully. Repetition, reflection, and refinement are the building blocks of mastery. Every hour you dedicate compounds interest in your abilities, creating exponential returns over decades. Learning just one high-value skill can multiply your earning potential, influence, and impact beyond what money alone can do. Focus on high-impact areas, ignore distractions, and ruthlessly protect your learning time. Mastery compounds faster than you think when approached with intention. And I also discovered that skills give you freedom in ways money cannot. By 33, I understood that a high income without transferable skills is fragile. Job loss, market shifts, or changing industries can wipe out financial security. In contrast, skills allow you to create, adapt, and pivot in any environment. In your 20s, building a portfolio of skills is building a safety net that cannot be taken away. Every skill you acquire multiplies your options. The ability to start a business, lead a team, solve complex problems, or create passive income. Skills become leverage, influence, and freedom rolled into one. Income without skill is dependent. Skill without income is independent. The more versatile your skill set, the less vulnerable you are to external forces. This realization changes how you prioritize time, effort, and learning in your 20s. And I noticed a pattern. By 30, the people I admired most weren't just rich. They were experts, creators, and problem solvers. Their skills attracted income, influence, and opportunities naturally. In your 20s, this is a lesson worth internalizing. Focus on becoming indispensable, not just wealthy. Skills act like compound interest. The more you learn, the faster you learn the next skill, and the more opportunities you can seize. This creates a feedback loop where competence generates confidence, influence, and income simultaneously. Early skill compounding is the secret to exponential growth. The sooner you start, the greater the payoff. Stop chasing temporary wealth, chase permanent capability. Skills are the multiplier, income is the byproduct, and influence is the reward. And another truth is that skills create resilience. By 33, I had seen countless people with high incomes but limited abilities struggle when circumstances changed. Layoffs, crises, and market shifts expose the fragility of relying solely on money. In your 20s, building skills is like building a fortress that protects you against uncertainty. Every skill you acquire is a tool you can use in any context, industry, or environment. Skills are flexible, portable, and self-reinforcing. They survive economic cycles, personal challenges, and market disruptions. Investing in skills compounds over time, creating resilience, independence, and self-reliance. Money may fluctuate, but the ability to create, adapt, and execute never depreciates. Prioritize skills over short-term gains. And I also learned that skills attract the right people and networks. By 33, I realized that income alone doesn't cultivate meaningful relationships, mentorship, or collaboration. High-value skills, however, naturally attract opportunities and the people who can amplify your growth. In your 20s, every skill you master expands your credibility and influence. You become someone others want to learn from, work with, and follow. This creates a network effect that compounds your impact far beyond your immediate efforts. Skills are social capital in addition to intellectual and financial capital. Investing in yourself early sets the stage for decades of advantage in relationships, mentorship, and collaboration. The compounding effect is limitless when applied strategically, and discipline and deliberate practice are non-negotiable for compounding skills. I wasted years assuming talent would carry me. By 33, I understood that mastery required focus, repetition, and reflection. In your 20s, the most valuable asset is not talent, it's disciplined effort applied consistently. Each hour you dedicate compounds into capability, which compounds into confidence, which compounds into opportunity. Small, consistent steps build momentum that grows exponentially over time. Avoid distractions, prioritize high leverage learning, and measure progress. Skills are not built overnight. They're built daily, intentionally, and relentlessly. Mastery compounds faster than almost anything else in life. And finally, I realized that the combination of skills and action is unstoppable. By 33, the people who changed their industries, built empires, or led movements weren't just lucky. They had mastered high-value skills and applied them relentlessly. In your 20s, you have the rare chance to learn and execute before obligations limit your freedom. Every skill you compound creates leverage over time, multiplying income, influence, and impact. Skills become your currency, your shield, and your advantage in any situation. Money will follow where capability leads. Focus on compounding your skills relentlessly, ignore shortcuts that promise immediate returns, and prioritize long-term growth over temporary gains. The more you invest in yourself now, the more unstoppable you become in the future, and investing in skills also changes your mindset. By 33, I noticed that people who focused on compounding abilities approached life with curiosity, resilience, and confidence. In your 20s, adopting this mindset means you stop chasing validation or short-term approval. You focus on what you can control, your abilities, knowledge, and output. Skills compound into autonomy, influence, and freedom, giving you leverage over decisions, opportunities, and life itself. This mindset shifts your perspective from scarcity to abundance, from fear to action. Every day spent building capability multiplies exponentially into the decades ahead. The best investment is always yourself, and the earlier you start, the more remarkable the returns. And if you make one decision in your 20s that will pay dividends for the rest of your life, it is this: compound your skills relentlessly. Don't obsess over income, status, or temporary recognition. Build abilities that create value, open doors, and multiply opportunities over time. Skills are the ultimate leverage. They outlast money, adapt to circumstances, and attract the right people and resources. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, investing in skills is the hidden superpower of exponential success. Focus on growth, discipline, and mastery, and everything else, the money, freedom, influence, follows naturally. Start now, invest wisely, and your future self will thank you for decades of compounding advantage.